Hey, Shawn, how's it going?
Pretty good, man. Good.
Yeah, thanks for coming out here with me. I really appreciate it. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful day.
Yeah.
Sitting down here by this gorgeous little creek, Brablin Brook, whatever you want. And we're going to think today about Herman Hesse's Siddhartha. And we had a conversation about, I don't know, books that were important to us, extra canonical books beyond official AA literature.
Yeah.
You know, like what is stuff that's been meaningful to our journey or whatever. So we'll just start off there. My friend, why have you picked this book today?
You know, this is kind of like, it's not always like what a book is, but when it actually finds you. That kind of is like a huge thing. But I don't know. I was really early on in my recovery, like maybe like a couple months or something. And they always tell you like, don't start a relationship in your first couple months.
Yes, year sometimes.
Yeah. I think a year is like
that's right.
that's probably the sweet spot.
Yeah.
But of course, I didn't take heed to that.
Not many do, truthfully.
Yeah. Started kind of seeing this girl, and there was nothing like crazy bad, but like, you know, one person said it really well to me in like early sobriety. They were like, "You have nothing to offer somebody."
They said it really well. Indeed.
You were like a mess of cables in a drawer that you're still trying to like figure out which end is which, and you have nothing to offer anybody. And I started seeing this girl, and after like a couple months, I kind of like realized it was like not, you know, a good thing for me at the time. And, you know, selfishly, like, you know, put it to an end. And she was like pretty upset, but she, like, maybe like a month into us like hanging out and stuff, she gave me this book.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And she really didn't explain that it had a context of like sobriety or anything like that. And it sat on my desk for quite a while. And then 9 months into my sobriety, kind of when I'd been like actually making a lot of like amends and kind of getting to like somewhat of, you know, seeing some of the promises and stuff like that. Like I went camping in Shenandoah.
Beautiful, yeah.
Absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
And it was also just the time. I had like traveled and made some like really hard amends. And I went out, and this book was just small enough. I was like, this will fit in my backpack. It's like really small. And I don't know, it was a really transformative experience just reading this in the woods. I don't know, it was like the perfect time.
Perfect setting for sure. Yeah.
There was a moment, I think when we get into it a little bit, you know, I was by a river, and it was just such a huge, pivotal moment. It was crazy. So that's why I chose this book, I guess.
Nice, heck yeah.
Yeah.
Well, rivers and flows are very important to me as well. The idea, since we're talking about roughly about Eastern sort of spirituality here, or at least the Westernized version of it, you know, talking about impermanence and just constant ability to take in, include, move, all those kinds of things. So looking forward to thinking about this with you, especially those concepts have all been really important to my own journey. So like what when you first started reading the book, what made you keep wanting to read it? What when you were just at the beginning there, was there anything that hooked you or not so much?
I mean, you know, it's really funny because you asked me to do this, and I went into the woods again. This time I went up north, where they had that huge storm up in Upper Peninsula, Michigan, in Pictured Rocks, and I read it again.
Wow.
And I could see myself, there's so many things I could see myself in this book.
Yeah.
Left home at an early age, 17, finished high school out of my car, and then like went out on my own and did my thing. Joined the ascetics, if you will.
But
there's like a lot of different like trajectories that I could like see myself in. And it's funny, between those two trips, there's like I could see myself in different places, you know, and that's like the constant cycle of life, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're constantly like in a process of birth, rebirth, death, and just this like constant like circle.
Yeah.
So I don't know, just reading the book for the first time, I was just like, yeah, that's why I went out and drank
Yeah,
for enlightenment.
Yeah, right.
That's why I went like headfirst into lust and all these things, you know.
Yeah.
But I mean, really, that was actually what kind of hit me, was that when you get sober, you kind of think to yourself like, man, I wish I had done this so many years ago. I wish I had like done all of these things differently and like thought of things differently. But that's not the way to enlightenment. You know what I mean? You have to sometimes hit every every branch on a tree, and you have to like go out there, and you have to, you know, love, and then have your heart break and all these things, and that actually gets you to a place of enlightenment, I think. So
Yeah. So this is one of the big themes of the book that we'll explore as we look at the different parts of it, but just this embrace of all of it, including, you know, call it depravity or whatever, but like it's all a teacher, it's all a lesson, it's all a part of the journey. And so like when we finally, you know, wrap this up with the ending kind of vision, we'll talk through some of how that happens, if it can happen or whatever. But I'm kind of curious, you know, starting off, Siddhartha in the book, I should make this clear, in the Buddhist canon, Siddhartha becomes Gautama, the Buddha, and in this one, it's not like that. One of Herman Hesse's techniques that he uses in a whole bunch of books is to have different characters that seem to be aspects, perhaps, of the same person. So there are a number of characters that are kind of all related, but in weird ways that you don't know, is this a different version of the person, because he also plays with time, so that you don't know if it's a different version of the person like appearing at a different time in a different place, but that, you know, is either going to be or already was, and it just kind of like all happens, you know, simultaneously around the same time. So it can be a little bit tricky, but
it's kind of the point too, right? I mean, I have highlighted right here, time is not real.
Yes. Yeah.
And it is all just an illusion, you know what I mean? And like, yeah, the teachers you find, the Buddhas you find along the way and stuff like that. What was, I think actually when I first met you, you told me the phrase, if you find the Buddha on the road, kill him. What is the full phrase, I guess?
That's what it is. That is like straight from, you know, Buddhist teaching, that like this paradox. Like, so if you actually do find the Buddha, I think it's supposed to mean something like, if you find like the one, or like the end, or like the goal, you've reached it, you think you're there, like that's like the most deadly of all the illusions in a way, especially if it comes in the form of the Buddha, in the form of enlightenment. Oftentimes, if our enlightenment, I think, is a static one, like finished, I'm enlightened now, or whatever, I think, you know, we've grabbed onto something that is not really enlightenment. Very, very similar to an idea within Christian mysticism that, you know, Meister Eckhart famously prayed, God, rid me of God. In other words, like, what's getting in the way of my experience of God is my ideas about God. And, you know, like my grasping at those final kind of like, oh, I've won the argument, I've arrived, or whatever kind of things are the most dangerous. So the phrase, you know, that sounds very strange when people first hear it, but I think it's pretty well-known one now. Like, if you see the Buddha in the road, kill him. What's meant by that is like more metaphorical than literal, perhaps. But like, you know, if you think that, you know, you've arrived and you found the guru that's going to, you know, accomplish for you, you know, what you couldn't for yourself, or anything like that, then that's you're barking up the wrong tree. And I think part of my journey, and the reason why I connect that so much, is I always was looking for that.
Yeah.
I always was looking for that. I was looking for the answer. The teacher, the whatever. And so we see even in this book, you know, Siddhartha does find the Buddha. So we'll have to kind of get to that point, though. But so he leaves his house. He's a wealthy Brahmin. That is the regular canonical story of the Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama. Northern Nepal. That's also where the Buddha is originally from. Buddhism is roughly a reform movement within Hinduism, and again, it's really hard to say that any of this is like super unified. So people just imagine, oh, Hinduism is like Christianity. It's not really, in the sense that it's so different, many different forms of it, which is actually true of Christianity too. But like, there's not one unified set of ideas really. But as we go through, we're going to kind of see, you know, Herman Hesse's understanding of what the Buddha was teaching. And I should say that there were a number of people within the Buddhist community, actual Buddhists, that said, this is a good start. not that this is the end, but I think the biggest criticism was that sort of like an individualistic journey, whereas actually practice Buddhism in Asia is like very family oriented. It has traditions, so it's not individualistic, and so but this is nonetheless a start from many people's perspective into a Buddhist practice or whatever.
And that's also kind of the thing about the book that's kind of amazing, is how simplistic it is.
Yeah, that's right.
It is almost kind of I think someone who is like a child could probably read this and get a lot out of it, because it is just read so simplistic, but at the same time there's huge depth in these just little pools of the story that are just wow, I could probably read that 10 times and not even completely understand it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
especially when he starts getting into duality at the end and stuff like that.
Huge, yeah. And it's not only it is duality. It's it is really yin and yang type duality, which is more of a Taoist deal. But nonetheless, it's contradiction, which is why that's why I generally like his take on things.
Yeah.
So the unresolved contradiction that is actually productive at the same time. So well, in productive in the sense that it moves. And that's what we want. We want to be moving, which is, again, why we're down here by this,
the river doesn't stop,
river.
Man.
That's right.
It's slow moving.
That's right.
It's not the biggest river, but it's moving.
That's right. Well, let's start with your movement. So you left at 17, the house. That's you said, and that's actually when I left my house too. But but yours was a little bit different than me. A lot of bit different. I was going to college, but you were hitting the road, and So let's talk about that a little bit. The beginning of the journey.
Towards the end of me, in high school and stuff, it was just me and my mom, and we did not get along. I think, like Siddhartha, just I was thirsty. I had this insatiable thirst. I wanted to go and experience life, and I couldn't do that at home. And I also wanted to experience the pain and hardship of leaving. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I did. I finished out high school living in my car.
Really? Wow.
I was completely homeless. I graduated. And
had you been kicked out or you left?
It was kind of both, I guess. Yeah, it was just.
And stop me if I get too probing. I apologize.
No, not at all. No, I'm people in AA are pretty in recovery are pretty open to these kind of things. But I definitely just had to leave, and I knew it was the right time for me, and it was really rough, especially I think I left in December or something like that, living in your car in the winter of Indiana.
Oof. Yeah, we should mention Shawn is from West Lafayette. That is a college town, but kind of a bizarre one, I have to say.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not your typical college campus, Purdue.
No. And it's weird too, because when people think Indiana, they think it's a very just cornfields and you know what I mean? But it isn't necessarily because of the college either. There's just a pocket of really cool weirdos there.
Yeah,
there was
totally.
There was a record store where they had shows. There was just a whole
a big record store.
There was a whole community of weirdos that just loved crazy, wild rock and roll music and stuff. So there
Nice.
was skate shops that used to have parties and stuff like that. There was a whole skater scene and everything like that.
Cool, yeah.
So
it wasn't just engineer nerds.
I just wanted to go.
You've come back home to.
I wanted to go find my weirdos, my ascetics, you know what I mean, and then learn what I could from them.
Yeah.
I wanted to.
But also your revelers, right? So that's just the great duality of this book too, is that both are embraced.
Yes.
And neither one is promoted above the other, I don't think.
Yeah.
But anyways, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So yeah, just learning from the thirst, learning from because it's crazy. He wants to, when he's at home, he wants to find the self.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he finds the self, he wants to strangle it.
Yeah, that's right.
And numb it, and he wants to put it away, and he wants to meditate a million years and find peace with the self. And it doesn't really do him anything, because he comes right back out of the cycle and he's still faced with the self.
That's right.
And that's what you do when you're like, when you're boozing and you're drinking, you know what I mean? You just want to completely numb yourself, and you think you're reaching some place of enlightenment.
That's good, yeah.
And you don't.
Yeah.
You come straight back into the mirror and see yourself.
Yeah, I wonder sometimes people consider this differently. I didn't find anything even close to enlightenment, but in my wild years or whatever. But like, for me, it was like we were saying, this kind of like lesson the hard way about what doesn't work. But like, I sometimes wonder, and you sometimes hear this, especially now that we're in the middle of some big psychedelic renaissance for the last 10 years, that and the typical Buddhist criticism of that is that it's artificial. Like it's and also that you return back, and because you didn't get there through practice, because you got there through a drug, that you just come right back, and it's even worse the way it comes back. But I think, like this book shows, he went out there, explored, and even was in places of great enlightenment, but eventually always kind of came back, and until the end, and then we just don't. The story doesn't go on, so we don't know if he's like winds up in some sense.
We don't know if he relapses or not.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. And so what I mean by back is like in the world.
Yeah.
So there's this very famous kind of movement. Think of it as a Joseph Campbell kind of like hero's journey, if you will. And I should say this is one of the things that this book got criticized for, is that it was too individualistic in that regard. It didn't regard the community. Perhaps in some of the ways that it should have, but this is I guess my larger point is that he does come back into society even after kind of his first time meeting the Buddha or whatever. And when he leaves, it's not really like a total rejection of it. It's just, I don't know, kind of a part of the flow of the river or whatever. I don't know.
It also he does kind of become at peace with people. Even though he's like being a ferryman and he's taking people across the river and stuff, he comes to a point where he's not put off by any of their like search for greed or anything like
right.
that. He's like
including that businessman.
Yeah, he's like
he's chill with the business guy. He's not like condemning him or whatever. I mean, he definitely has a meditation about like how money's not going to make you happy and that kind of thing. But and those kinds of attachments don't make you happy. But I don't know. He's not. Yeah, you're right. He's in it at any rate.
Yeah.
He's doing it. He's making the business deal, so to speak. But so he takes off, and very famously, there's a little bit of echo in this in the book, not quite as much as in the sort of like story of the Buddha that everybody knows. But like he's curious about suffering.
Yeah.
This is the thing, and it was really striking to me that was what you said too about yours. You wanted to kind of, I don't know, encounter it, embrace it, something like that. But like, it was the fact that his family, in the canonical version, had tried to keep him from suffering, didn't want him to see death. That when he finally encounters suffering, it's fascinating to him, and like and then it just opens up all these sort of questions. So it's almost like the thing that you were kept from becomes the one thing that you become obsessed by or whatever. But I don't know if there was any way you could speak to like sort of like the character of your quest, especially this sort of like interest in suffering or living hard or however you want to put it. Like,
I don't know. I think being obsessed with like Nirvana when you're younger kind of does a lot to you.
You mean the band, or you mean like
the
state
of
Kurt
Cobain in particular? Like,
yeah.
I think I read his like diaries when I was younger. And,
yeah.
Like, how he had like I guess been homeless and lived this life and stuff like that, and you romanticize it. You know what I mean? And you kind of romanticize that pain.
I see. Yeah, this is really good. Yeah.
It's not to say that it actually doesn't do something for you too. To kind of reach that lower level and be around other people who are around that lower level in life and stuff like that. Kind of opens your world up. You know what I mean? You've experienced things at the same time as like other people in different places instead of just being a rich Brahmin's son and just like
which you weren't, but like
but like it's still like the lower you go and the higher you go, like the more people along the way that you meet, I think the more well-rounded you are. And
for sure. Yeah,
and I think he had to go out and experience these things, and I had to, tour with the band and like do all these like different, make terrible mistakes in Europe on tour and do all these like different things that, they weren't good, but in a way they kind of brought me to where I am, what I mean? And they opened up my world, and, I dare I say, like, opened my capacity to love and love people who are differently than me, and like, open my awareness of people and stuff. So.
Yeah, very nice. Any examples that come to mind, or should we... like any anecdotes or stories that, make sense in that regard to you, or?
I guess, being on the road, you kind of have your like brethren, like when you're on the road, you're kind of like an army, so to speak, and I almost think Govinda and Siddhartha are kind of like in that same capacity. They're kind of like, let's go out and experience the world, but it's really rough going out in the world completely by yourself when you're younger, But then, of course, like their paths completely diverge, and they grow into completely different people, and they grow like different people wanting different things. And like some of your early friendships when you're young are like that,
Yeah.
You learn so much from each other and like see so many different things in each other, and then you grow from that, but you sometimes go completely different ways, and that's the way it's
sad,
been.
but like necessary for sure. I think that is definitely one of the lessons here about attachments in this book. Is like, even your attachments to your closest friends, like.
I mean, Govinda, like have you heard of codependency or anything like that?
That's right. Yeah, totally. Totally. Well, I mean, it's interesting too because like, so there is this period of looking for a teacher, and they actually find the teacher. They find who's called Gautama, the Buddha, in the book. So like that's the teacher, and Govinda decides to stay, and Siddhartha decides to go. So it's interesting. I will say also, I think I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but like there is this kind of like confusion about identity. It's almost as if Govinda could be an aspect of Siddhartha and vice versa, like the two different paths that could be and like could be taken.
If he had stayed the path
that's right.
Of the righteous,
just kind of playing it out or whatever.
Or gone that way.
Yeah, and I mean famously, the Buddha against canonical Buddha did not stay an ascetic. He spent a very long time, very severe, like was the best of the ascetics, and that's sort of an interesting part of the book too. It's like it is like you get very clear idea that it's almost like a competition, and you're getting it wrong if it's like who can like resist the most shit or whatever the fuck.
There's a moment when he's like praising Siddhartha, like, you have learned to sit and fast better than even some of the elders, and some of the elders have like seen you and like been kind of jealous of you and stuff like that. And it's like in sitting.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I mean, I guess there is like, I don't know, you can get to like lower levels in Zen and stuff like that, where it is kind of like, your meditation isn't crazy strong, but still, like, it is weird to be like jealous of somebody.
Totally.
Like,
I mean, I think that, if I understand the story of the Buddha correctly, that was one of the biggest things he was turned off about the whole thing. But it really is this rejection of society, because when Siddhartha Gautama, the canonical guy, leaves his family, also a wealthy family, Brahmin kind of royalty basically, he leaves his family. He has kids and stuff like that. So like he leaves the whole deal, and so part of his asceticism is a total renunciation. And I think, if I understand again correctly, there are different versions, but like there is this sort of regret, like, or at least this realization that that somehow being in the world is still necessary, that just going off and like meditating for the rest of your life and not eating food is like maybe not the point of life, and especially if it gets into this like competitive meditation crap or competitive asceticism crap, it turns into just another, mistake. That is definitely not going to lead you to nirvana or enlightenment or whatever you're calling it.
You think about it and you're like, you question actually in the book, you're like, do you think Govinda ever fell in love? Like, you know what I mean? Did he completely just...
Yeah, because he goes all the way, man.
He just devoted his life completely to this like identity of religiosity and like, and just finding enlightenment, but he never actually fell in love. So it's like, how far into enlightenment actually could he have gone? I don't know. That is one of the quandaries, is that like, he became the Buddha, like in complete, you know what I mean? Like the illusion of the Buddha.
That's right. Yeah.
In that he dressed like him, he walked like, you know what I mean? Like, but never instilled any of that knowledge.
Yeah,
really.
That's right. And we sort of see this, and this would go back straight to if you see the Buddha on the road, kill him.
Yeah.
Because like if you see yourself doing that, if you see yourself, or we know the dude who like is sober for however like a week, and already is enlightened and ready to tell people everything, and knows everything. All of a sudden, we kind of know that that's bullshit.
Yeah.
So, but even the dude who's been sober for a long ass time and like kind of like tries to attract people around him like some kind of guru type figure and wants people to like sit at his feet or whatever, we know that guy doesn't got it either.
No.
Yeah. So the Buddha, the real Buddha is going to be somewhere where that's not what you know about him. The Buddha that you call Buddha is not Buddha, which is the way, the Taoist version of that is like the way that you know is the way, or that you can call the way, is not the way. So like, it's a real tricky mistake, and I think our friend Govinda falls for it, and even becomes it to some degree. And I think Herman Hesse is definitely like aware of that as a possible problem.
Yeah.
So
it's really funny because, I always love that part in the book when he actually meets Govinda later in life and he doesn't recognize him, and he kind of like, he says like, I'm on a passage, and he's wearing like a business suit and stuff like that, and he's by a river. He's like, wait, you're a seeker on a pilgrimage? Like, that doesn't make any sense. You don't dress anything like someone on a pilgrimage or anything like that.
Yeah, good example.
And it always reminds me of like my nephew, who like, I should say, preface this with, I did kind of venture into Christianity and got baptized and confirmed Catholic and everything like that. But my nephew, who's young, he does not believe I'm a Christian.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, Uncle Shawn, you don't dress like a Christian.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I don't believe you're a Christian.
Yeah,
and
right,
stuff like
yeah.
that. And it's, sometimes you don't know what a seeker looks like. You know what I mean? And you don't realize that like, Christianity might be one of my teachers, but like, I have teachers all around.
That's
me
right.
and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Nice. Yeah.
I don't know. It's just funny to see religion in these things, like from like the way a kid like looks at things and stuff. And I feel like sometimes like, Govinda is kind of like a child almost. You know what I mean?
Totally.
He kind of has such a naive, like, sensibility with how he like sees these checklists of conforming to this,
nice.
religion.
Good example.
Stuff.
Yeah, perfect. Whereas the Buddha, I meant to say Siddhartha, he gets a woman, and gets a job, and has to deal with all that hassle. So
rivers are never straight lines. You know what I'm saying?
That's right, yeah.
Rivers bend, man.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, the other thing that Herman Hesse was criticized for, as a lot of Western Buddhists or Westerners who are interested in Eastern religion get criticized for, is for romanticizing it. But I don't really see that in this book. I don't really see a romanticization of that so much. And also, just biographically, he went east, and also his mother was actually born in India as a daughter of Christian missionaries there. But anyways, he took a trip east, and he got like suicidal afterwards. He was so depressed because he didn't find all the things he imagined about
In
the
his brain.
Eastern guru, about the, he imagined, the Eastern lifestyle would be like somehow, the way he imagined it or read about it, in the texts that were becoming available in a major way. They really affected German thinking just before him. So like a lot of his heroes, like Schopenhauer, for example, very famously, read extensively in Eastern spirituality, but a number of German idealists and German romanticists had been getting access to those texts, and you can imagine if you read the story of the Buddha and his renunciation of the world, you think, all this wisdom of the East kind of thing. I mean, think Beatles or somebody like that in the 1960s, because this book is his most popular book, and it became very popular again in the hippie kind of movement thing. And it was a lot of hippies' first experience when they were still in high school or whatever with kind of Eastern spirituality, and it kind of like started this whole interest in it, for a lot of people. But as with the Beatles and a lot of other people, they go east, get a guru, and then get disappointed because it's like it's not the way that they imagined it in their head or whatever. So, yeah.
Well, we can't all be the walrus,
That's right, man. That's right. So anyway,
meet the walrus on the road, kill him.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. That's true. But so they both go their separate ways, and the Buddha, he doesn't directly reject. I mean, the Buddha, I keep saying that. Siddhartha doesn't directly reject the Buddha or Gautama. Doesn't fight to have Govinda come with him or anything like that. Like, you're making a big mistake.
Yeah.
He's just like, nah, I'm a rambling man. I got to ramble kind of dude.
I think the thing that he kind of like, because he talks with Gautama in the grove a little bit, and he realizes that his teachings aren't actually how you get to enlightenment. It's just a way away from pain. And he even talks about
really
how
good, yeah.
he even talks about how he's like, Gautama did not live by these principles. He actually had to go out and do these things and like experience life and then come to this enlightenment. But if Gautama had just, gone by his own rules, he would have never got there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's like almost as if Gautama's not making an outline for you to go the path that he did. He's leading an outline for you to escape pain and suffering.
That's nice, yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that's why he realized, like, he saw straight through his his teachings and saw that, you can't just, it's not just a straight line. You have to go out and, but he does actually, I think, like, get some enlightenment after that. He goes out into nature and he sees things differently and stuff,
Yeah, he has like a moment right before he, goes into society where it almost is like a mini enlightenment or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's very similar, a lot of language to the final enlightenment, if you even want to call it that, but that's like the opposite of what it is in a sense. But this is one of the things that Hesse criticized about some of the forms of Buddhism that he saw being professed, was just that. And it's actually the exact same problem within Christian asceticism or Christian mysticism or whatever you want to call it, that was recognized really early on as something along the lines of escape samsara, or escape suffering by the sort of like dissolving yourself, so that, and dissolving all your desires. So it's like kind of like by just extirpating yourself from the whole cycle of suffering,
kind of almost
or whatever.
Like similar to like Stoicism or something.
Yes, totally.
You can
very
just,
good. Very
you can
good.
just numb yourself from the pain, and you'll live a, I don't know, this like just
detached,
crazy detached, dull life.
Yeah. It's a form of detachment that Hesse rejected, and actually some of the like early Buddhists who reviewed him said like that's actually closer to actual Buddhism. Like actual Buddhism, like as taken by a lot of Westerners, is just like pure self-discipline and asceticism or whatever,
Well,
and that's not what it actually
real
is.
Christianity and real Buddhism are not the ones that are usually followed.
Amen. Amen. So yeah, and that's going to very much relate to that final scene as well. But this is and then he enters into a city and the life there and gets sucked in by a woman. So this is another one of the criticisms that gets brought up, but I think there's answers to it. So the general criticism of the hero's journey is that all the characters along the way are just kind of like used towards your end.
Yeah.
And so reminiscent, I don't think Simone de Beauvoir was pointing at Herman Hesse when she said this necessarily, but it was applied to Herman Hesse, is that Kamala, or are we saying Kamala?
Whatever you want. Dealer's choice.
Dealer's choice. But, so that she is just kind of like a vehicle to like, to further him along. But anyways, he is sucked in by her beauty and falls in love.
She's his Virgil to the depths of hell, essentially.
Well said. Wow, that's really good. But anyways, yeah. So she's the guide. That's right. Yeah. But I don't think Hess handles it that way. I don't think he like makes it seem like, he's in hell or something like that, or just like he doesn't turn into some like kind of moralistic like thing.
And actually, I feel like the like love making and stuff is very like it's a very mutual thing. It's
very beautiful.
There's no like degrading and stuff like that. There's like this immense respect in him just learning from her and stuff like that. And I don't know. I feel like that is like the way to kind of experience like intimacy and stuff like that, is to like learn from each other and like being a disciple, then being a teacher, and it was like kind of turning around and stuff like that. And I think that was very, I mean, you can say what you want to say about the fact that he kind of just like uses her teachings and then hits the road. and then she is just kind of like this like muse persona. But at the same time, I feel like there is kind of like this beauty in the way that like their interactions kind of, are mutually beneficial, and they like, are both inspired and they both like love. But it is funny because, I've had so many of these books, and like, because I've like given them, I like get one, and then I just, whenever I see a used one, I buy one, and I'll like give them to people and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I found this one with notes and stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was like some like high schooler putting notes in here for like a book report or something like that, but there's like some like really funny ones, and one was, he meets like another woman, who just like kind of randomly approaches him, and it says she placed her foot on his right and made a gesture such as a woman makes when she invites a man to that kind of enjoyment of love, which the Holy Book calls ascending the tree.
Nice. Okay.
To which there is a note that just says, "Wow," to the side. So I don't know if that like just blew some like kid's like mind. I mean, also, instead of just going in to kiss her, it says he stooped a little towards the woman and kissed the brown tip of her breast.
Nice,
which is a pretty forward move. I mean, I never learned to just go straight to the nipple.
Yeah, that's right. Well, he was a straightforward guy. He was not playing around. Let's do this. Yeah,
he's got some enlightenment from the Buddha.
Yeah.
Straight to the nipple.
Sort of like lacks the sophistication to artfully, be more playful. He's just too direct at that point, perhaps. But I do want to mention two things. One is that eroticism is important in a lot of Eastern spirituality, and it's actually very important in Western mysticism as well. So that like the spiritual journey is often compared to a journey of love, including a very bodily, sensual, part of it. Like that's all integrated. It's very much through the body.
I mean, you think about some of your first like intimate experiences and stuff like that, and you do feel changed. You do feel like you've grown, like you've like experienced some other side of the world. You know what I mean? Like, so I could totally understand how that is part of the journey.
Totally. I mean, very famously for Western mystics, beginning with Jewish mysticism, however you consider that, Merkava mysticism, whatever, the Song of Songs was the most important text from the Bible, which is this love poem, the kiss of the mouth and all this kind of stuff, Of course, it's very metaphorical, and or at least it was read metaphorically by them as a love affair, a very sensual one between God and, the seeker, basically, or whatever. But the thing is that there's this confusion that I just want to see if you had anything to say about, because every step along the way, at least for me in the spiritual path, there's a potential for mistake. So we talked about, and you should make that mistake. We talked about the potential mistakes for asceticism. There's also the potential, and more obvious to some degree, mistakes with eroticism or with this very sensual way of being in the world. And so I was thinking about how when we first get sober, our real addiction, maybe it's too derogatory to think of it that way, but I would just say the thing that underlies whatever we're seeking is this sense of connection. And so it's very, very common, which is why I said, they tell everybody, don't get into a relationship in your first year, whatever. But most people already have their hookup from recovery, house or whatever, you know what I mean? They already, or they meet the person at the meeting or whatever. And it is this, it's not, I don't want to denigrate it so much, because you hear men in AA, especially in men's groups, very, what's the word, just hateful, kind of stuff about, women basically as, I'll just say the worst phrase I know, unfortunately, which is, this two-legged dope thing or whatever.
Dope with legs.
I despise that kind of shit. But
But I think they're just addressing the fact that it is a drug, just like any other drug.
Yeah.
And that infatuation and lust is something that, can be natural, but our own sex drives just bring it to a completely unnatural state.
Yeah. So at a lot of men's meetings, there'll just be a lot of misogynist comments that, they sometimes go over the line, where it's just okay, now this is kind of exposing the way you are in the world and the way you relate to intimacy, erotic relation, connection, just whatever. And so to me, this is where things get really interesting in sobriety, and I think everybody makes the mistake of looking for some kind of salvation in another person.
Well, it's such a lonely
relationship
time too in your life. You're going through so much self-discovery and stuff like that, and you're just completely, just trying to live day by day, not drinking and not doing these things and trying to resolve all of these past situations in your life and try to get your head around what actual recovery even means. And it's lonely, you know what I mean? And you just want somebody there or something like that, in that way.
Yeah,
in
totally.
that intimate way. But it's like my friend said, it's just you don't have that much to offer another person. You can't even stand up on your own. You're not going to be able to actually be able to commit to a relationship and be able to live up to your end of what a relationship is.
That's right. I've just seen so many guys over the years, and I've been in and out of the rooms since I was young. So, and within the first year they're married again, or moved in or whatever, or have kids already, you know what I mean? And then they kind of get this point where they realize that they, that they're not happy or whatever. And sometimes, it was just this realization that I attach to things in the wrong way, or I use people in the wrong way even, because of what? Because of some deep sense of lack inside of me. And that's the same lack to some degree that I was trying to cover over with drugs and alcohol. And so to me, it can go one way or another. It can go into the third wife after that, and the fourth and the fifth and the whatever, or, just endlessly, trying to find something in this cycle of oh, that wasn't the right one, it's got to be this one. Now I've figured it out, so I'm going to figure out the next one or whatever.
Well, he doesn't just go into the city and just pursue love either. He also fills his cup with gambling,
Yeah, that's right.
drinking,
Yeah, that's right.
just eating like terrible food, like,
Yeah.
gains a bunch of weight, just goes to excess in every single direction. And I think as an addict, like, you can totally see yourself in that, like, you just chasing after every single thing you can possibly find, anything you can find in front of you without having to actually face yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a terror.
And I don't know, that when I was like, in the woods reading this book, I was just like, holy crap. That is totally me. I'd been a bartender at the same place for like 7 years, pretty much, whenever I like kind of hit my bottom and then got sober. And, I had just lived that life of just like, it was just like Groundhog's Day, and you just get so sick of people and like humanity and like, in the beginning when he reaches the city and he starts like, he still kind of has the veneer of like just kind of that like small enlightenment that he had, so he's like, people's like, like the merchant gets angry and he's like, oh, just like chill out, man.
Yeah.
Just calm down.
Don't attach to money so much.
Money doesn't matter, but he stays so long that he finally becomes like, greedy, and he needs more and everything like that. And I don't know. And then finally, decides he wants to just end himself by the river. And I don't know. I mean, just like a lot of people that are in recovery, I had hit my bottom. You know what I mean? I just wanted it all to end. I just wanted that circus to just stop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and some people get that after they're sober too, because like so much of what's been covered up is now super raw and just really in your face.
Well, I think some of those people go the Govinda route. You know what I mean? They put on the like the robes, and they go to the meetings and they learn how to say the things, and they learn how to do the things, and they learn how to give alms and all, you know what I mean? All these different things, but they don't actually dive into the self.
Yeah.
And they don't find the river.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and this is kind of like one of the points of this podcast is like sometimes like you can do all the things, and like you can go to AA, and to some degree it's good advice. You'll be honest, and you'll go there and you'll say, hey, I don't feel like Joe AA today.
Yeah.
Shit sucks and it's not working. And then, some other AA guy will be like, well, that's because you don't go to enough meetings, and, you don't like, you're not doing the thing, you don't know, whatever, like, whatever. It just becomes like this, maybe that is the thing. I don't know.
The checklist thing.
That's right. That's right. Totally. But like, what we're trying to do here is think about like things that helped us, kind of outside of the program, although I still think it's intimately related to the overall goal that we're looking for in recovery, which is, some kind of, for me, freedom.
Yeah.
So the freedom to move, to continually to flow without so much, getting stuck in a repetition of the same, which is how I understand it. Which is how I understand addiction, just this endless repetition of this dissatisfying, cycle of sameness that sucks.
Yeah.
So like, how do we, become these creative, open souls, which again, I agree with you, is about learning how to love, how to be in love, how to open up in love. And I think, like one of the nice things about the book and his relationship with Kamala is like, I'm not exactly entirely sure why he left, but it wasn't because he like found it to be totally, as far as I can tell, like hollow or just like.
Well, I think she could actually see like throughout a little bit that he had lost his like way. She keeps like alluding to like, you used to like speak like poems to me, and you used to like have this like completely different. I think she could see that something in him was like dying, that he was not fulfilled just being a merchant and everything like that, and that all of this, that veneer, that initial wave of enlightenment had just like washed away. You know what I mean? And that he was becoming more and more.
Yeah, so
hollow.
she's kind of crazy enlightened in a way, because she's not attached to him so much so that she couldn't let him go.
I mean, I feel like as a character, you could paint her as just like this muse. But like, I think she had a little more depth than that. I think
totally.
she was completely self-aware. She totally realized what she was, what she wanted, what she wasn't. You know what I mean? Like,
And could let it go. It's kind of amazing. I mean, one of the suggestions, I don't even know if it's a suggestion, but one of the criticisms too of their relationship is that it's like this typical male thing where like, I had to go get a job because, that's what she required or whatever. Like she tamed me or whatever. But like, he doesn't have any, I don't know, like, anger about that necessarily that I can see. Like he just kind of chills with the merchant and like lives the life or whatever. Yeah, there's just something that happens, and then she's just able to let him go or whatever. So, and then this leads to the river again. Yeah, so back to his friend down by the river, whose name, of course, I forgot.
Govinda?
No, not, yeah, he does meet Govinda again down by the river, but like his river friend. Vasudeva, yeah, who is his like totally like a different ideal, something a lot like the Buddha, but like it's said that in all of Herman Hesse's books, and this is another one of the possible criticisms, but I think it's perhaps avoided a little bit here, is that there's this sort of naive idea about the life of nature or living in nature. So he is the riverman who is just like totally content to just live out there in nature or whatever. But unbeknownst to our friend Siddhartha, he has impregnated Kamala. So she has a child, and who he will meet shortly. But
that he just like conveniently didn't know about.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. I mean, what's weird? I mean,
he didn't see any writing on the wall. Or anything.
He had been having sex with her for like 9 years or whatever. So like, I don't know. It seemed like that was at least a possibility, but.
Sometimes you can ascend the tree a lot of times and not make any fruit,
Yeah, yeah. So how would you characterize this part of his life? And like, I mean, is there any relation to it, to your own journey or your own
the soul sickness aspect?
Well, I mean, yes. If there's something about that, but like, yeah, having to, you've already been out there.
Yeah.
You come back in, but you got to leave again. You know what I mean? Like, or something along those lines. Of like, what does he find or rediscover or something like that out there? And I don't know.
I like, like I said, like sometimes you got to hit every branch on a tree to reach enlightenment. And I definitely have regrets. Like, man, I wish I could have got sober like 5 or 6 or whatever years earlier, but I really think I had to make all of those bad decisions to get to where I had to go. And I think I had to like learn from some of the like baseless people like the merchant, and I had to learn from all these people. And I think he even explicitly says, like, to Govinda, I think later in the book, that like Kamala, the merchant, all of these people were his teachers.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? That he learned something from them. It doesn't have to always be the one key to enlightenment, but there's multiple keys. There's multiple doors. There's doors within doors, essentially.
That's right.
in recovery.
Yeah.
You're constantly like, it's the samsara. It's like you're constantly like enlightened then unenlightened, and going through it. And I don't know, like Vasudeva kind of is like, the ideal sponsor, essentially. He's just like he listens.
Yeah.
He's a very simple guy. He doesn't try to go over your head or anything like that. He just listens, and he's just like, and he's been around all the people. He's been like carrying people over this river for God knows how many years, and he's actually like really, really experienced life, and he's, experienced loss of his like wife and everything like that. And he imparts that pain and that wisdom and everything like that to Siddhartha without ever really conveying a lot of it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And just by listening, and just by listening to his river, which is his higher power.
That's right. Yeah.
And I don't know, rivers do have like a huge spiritual aspect.
Yeah.
And the one thing, when I went out there to Shenandoah, I went on this trail. It was like pretty secluded trail. There was no one there.
Yeah.
And I was just in the middle, kind of like one of those little like kind of like islands in the middle of a river. And I'm reading this book, and this like cool snake just slithers past my way and everything like that.
Snake's coming in this book too, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And, I just like, I felt like such a beautiful moment. And I don't know, sometimes when you're around rivers for a while, like especially like a fast, not a river like this, like a fast moving river.
We couldn't find a river like that. Yeah.
The rocks will kind of like move in the river, and you'll get this like boom.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I know what you mean.
And
yeah,
when you've been in the wilderness for so long, a lot of times like you kind of start talking to yourself, you know, after like the third day of not seeing anybody, you kind of talk to yourself. And then I swear to God, like even before I got to the river scene, I could hear voices in the river. I swear to God.
Yeah, yeah.
So, you know, you hear all the rocks, blum, 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 you know what I mean? You're hearing these like voices and stuff like that, and it's a really surreal moment.
Yeah.
And then I get to the point of I get to the river chapter, talking about like listening to these voices and stuff like that. It was just like, it was kind of one of those aha moments, you know.
Totally,
like,
that is awesome.
Especially in your first, I feel like there's such a like a brightness to life the first year of sobriety that you're like seeing all these things and you're like, everything is clicking, and you notice all of these like moments of synchronicity and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it was just like, phew, that was like a big shot. And I sat by the river and I read into the book a little bit more, and I swear to God, I believe that was my spiritual awakening. Like, I don't know if there is like, you know, everyone gets a definitive moment of the spiritual awakening or anything like that, but like I cried for the first time out of happiness my entire life in that moment.
Wow, that's wonderful.
And I was just so happy that I didn't just like kill myself by the river and stuff like that.
I am too, yeah. Thanks for not doing that.
And I found a Vasudeva, you know, who helped me get away and like, you know, kind of like listen to me rant on about all my bullshit and everything like that, you know.
Wow, that's really cool. Maybe that brings us to the next thing I want to talk about, and maybe not is your conversion to Catholicism, just because you know, when you were talking about, you know, being alone for 3 days, and you start talking to yourself, it made a connection in my mind, at any rate, of a part of a spiritual journey that I took, and I know you took too, which was to Gethsemane. And it's a Trappist monastery, I should explain to folks, and the vows are the normal vows of Catholic monks, and which are chastity, obedience, and poverty. But the last one that's thrown in there, it's pretty intense, is silence. I couldn't take it. I tried to spend a summer down there, and I just pretty much, I was in college and I really went crazy. I had read Thomas Merton's 7-Story Mountain, and you know, I was a college kid. I was very romantic to me, like, oh my God, these guys. This is, you know, this scene where Merton's like pounding on the door at Gethsemane, and they're like, "Welcome home, brother. We knew you were coming back," or whatever. I was just like, "Oh, that's you know, this must be this magical place." And I went there and seriously almost lost my mind. And it was like right in the middle too. Like, I had made heroes out of so many different people. It was like, and not that anybody poked any holes in that, but like nobody at Gethsemane was going to like. Give me what I at that time wanted, which was actually exactly what I did not need to like find the thing that I needed there. I just needed to realize that the thing is the movement, the you know, continual awakening, not, you know, one big moment. There is no like, oh, welcome home, brother, you're in the right place or whatever. That was a really important thing for me to realize that I didn't know at the time. I was just kind of like, man, I'm going crazy. Like, I have to get out of here. But anyway, just to make the connection to, you know, both of our spiritual paths. I mean, there are many ways in which I still consider myself Catholic, although I don't practice, but having been born and raised Catholic, and you know, talking
totally
to me,
different.
like I still know all the talk. I studied so many Catholic theologians in my life. I know the catechism still. So like, anyways, I just, you know, that was a major part of my life. So we have some connection there. I just wanted to open up anything you wanted to say about that.
Gethsemane is actually why I pursued Catholicism completely. And it was completely by accident. Another like just moment of like synchronicity where I'd been reading Thomas Merton.
Well, that's same.
Yeah. I'm glad I didn't read with 7-Story Mountain though, because it's not like my crazy favorite. Like, I really love like reading just in pieces, like his like the book Seeds of Contemplation, but there's like
Seeds of Contemplation, classic.
But I started reading that and like some other books and some of his like diaries and stuff like that, and I was just blown away in awe by the way he writes about his love for God, and just like, and in such a like almost like non-pious way or something like that, and just such a like a beautiful, intimate humility way.
Yeah.
And I'd never really read anything like that.
Yeah.
And you know, I wasn't raised in any like religious atmosphere or anything like that. The closest thing I had was we moved to Arkansas when I was like 7 or 8, and some Baptists like circled the house trying to baptize me and stuff like that.
Okay.
So that's like the only background I had.
Yeah.
So I read some Merton. Some friends of mine had invited me to go down to Gethsemane, but I had no clue that those were connected things at all.
Oh, interesting.
And I had this bike trip planned where I was going to bike from Pittsburgh to DC totally by myself for like a week.
Yeah.
And then right after that, I was going to go down to the Abbey and meet these people and stuff. And it was so funny, right when I got there, they were like, oh yeah, and then we're going to go see Thomas Merton's grave. And I was like,
okay.
Wait, what?
Yeah. And I didn't know the body got back here. That's interesting.
Yeah. So he's buried.
I didn't realize that.
On the grounds there. But I had no clue.
I was there. I didn't even know that. Yeah. I thought he was like died in Vietnam, so I didn't know that they were able to get him here.
Yeah.
But anyways, go ahead. Yeah.
Killed, I think. But you know.
Yeah.
whatever.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of conspiracy theories.
Anyway,
around that, yeah.
like you know, like you said, like there's the silent retreat aspect of that, which I love.
Yeah. It was
because
very
I
hard for
love
me.
like going into the woods by myself.
Cool, yeah.
I love biking for like a week on a trip completely by myself and barely having any human interaction, because my mind can actually like talk to itself.
Yeah. Mine too. Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah.
And I love that monastery just because it is just like so gorgeous, and the way they like do their like readings throughout the day, and like their songs and everything like that are just like absolutely beautiful. Meeting Brother Luke and everything, like the organist, just like so many beautiful things there. I just realized like, wow, I could really see myself going down this road and like pursuing Catholicism. And it was really funny because I'm a server / bartender, like still.
I thought you meant like an altar boy, but anyways, yeah.
They call them servers now.
Yeah, okay, really, okay.
But
I could believe it.
I was working at a restaurant and stuff, and this guy just like blurts out Thomas Merton, and it's not something you hear like every day, you know what I mean? And I just started talking with him, and he was like, maybe you should like get coffee with me, and we'll like talk about this. I've helped people through Catholicism and stuff.
Really?
And I was
he
like,
blurts it out. Like, how do you mean? Like, how?
He was just talking with another person about Thomas Merton and something.
Gotcha.
And I kind of like chimed in. I was like, oh wow, Thomas Merton. I love that. And I told him about going down to Gethsemane, and he mentioned that his father went down to Gethsemane so many times every year, and he passed away, and he'd never been himself. So he kind of like, helped me across that river and actually get confirmed in Catholicism. Yeah. And it's funny that I ended up going back with him, taking him across the other river to Gethsemane and stuff like that.
Oh, cool, yeah.
Which I do not think he did well with the not talking, because he kept on wanting to talk to me, and I'm like, dude, just like
come on, guy.
Come on, I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
But
no, I get close to psychosis if I am quiet for too long. I mean, maybe I'd be better now. I don't know. I should test it out. But but it's again this, especially in Merton's life, and this is like really related to the book to me. There's this incredible sort of like worldliness and then detachment, and then even in Merton's detachment, he was not a strict ascetic in the sense of like. Yeah. Like a lot of his like meditations are about like sensual things, like food and just different experiences in nature and those kinds of things. There's not a total rejection of the body or anything there. And there's also a lot of speculation, again, rumors. Who knows that he had little trysts with various women throughout his time where he was supposedly cloistered, because after being cloistered for a certain amount of time, he became a celebrity and would go out to speak and eventually even died in Vietnam, again because of this connection between East and West, especially with Thich Nhat Hanh and that whole rapprochement between Western mysticism and Eastern mysticism.
One thing I have to say is that I don't understand somebody who wants their saints completely clean.
Right on, right on.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I love that this Siddhartha actually goes into the world and experiences like sin. And it's like, like Thomas Merton is kind of taken off the list of being a saint because he had some random affairs and stuff like that, you know. But like, I don't see how that taints him at all.
Yeah,
it
right.
actually makes me love him more.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Totally, yeah.
And I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm just of the the mentality of Last Temptation of Christ.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
where
yeah.
I love that he goes into
into
sin and stuff like that and conquers it instead of just completely being holy his entire life. It's like the difference between Siddhartha and Govinda, essentially.
Perfect.
So.
I love that. Yeah, I totally love that. And I think it's like so related to the next episode in the book. We're coming to the close, but he's out there, he's perfectly contented, and the world comes back for him. His past kind of comes back for him. So Kamala wants to go find the Buddha, I think, but like kind of like runs into Siddhartha, and then it's like, this is your kid or whatever, and then our snake friend comes and
he didn't bite me.
That's right. And bites Kamala. She dies, and then Siddhartha has his son, and his son is very unhappy with their way of life because his son is used to life, I guess, with a relative amount of wealth. It sounds like Kamala had somewhat independent means, was from a somewhat wealthy family in the city, and so was just used to a totally different lifestyle, and was like just belligerently angry about having to be out there. And so I guess this is just one more kind of like worldly connection that becomes kind of interesting to me. I'm glad they didn't just like end blissed out on the river. But I will say that this is another criticism that where Herman Hesse gets majorly criticized, because it seems like he's making excuses for his own life.
Yeah.
He was married 3 times. The first time he had 3 kids, and right after he was married, he like went off to go live by himself. It almost seems in this instance where it's like he's playing that out so that like, well, the kids didn't like this out there in the middle of the woods, not connected to city kind of lifestyle, and so like the way it's portrayed in the book is like, I had to let him go. And I would have just been a burden to him or whatever. Whereas critics would say, no, that's your that's your responsibility. So, you need to go.
Which kind of goes to the whole thing that like, do you just completely go to a hermitage and like escape the world, or do you, become immersed in the world and just like stay there? And I think for me at least, I like my trips where I go completely by myself and do my own thing and like have these like moments where I don't talk for like a week or something like that. But I don't neglect the people in my world, to go on. You have to keep on searching, you have to keep on going towards yourself, but you still have to like be there for people, and you still have to like love and support people, you know what I mean? And that is it is an individualistic story of like, finding your path and stuff like that. But your path can also involve people and stuff. Probably doesn't make for as easy to read book.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Well,
too, like his son, he's portrayed, it's like his love for his son is very real and very much portrayed, and he does love and care for him. So they have to make it so that, or Herman Hesse has to make it so that when he lets him go back to the life he knew, that like he's doing that out of love. So there's that. But like there's also this like struggle that Siddhartha is having, like, am I falling back into like the world in a negative way because of my tremendous love for my kids? So I'm doing all these things like because the kid's pissed, he doesn't get enough food, I'm like making all these exceptions, I'm letting him like I'm indulging him in ways that I've rejected myself or whatever, but like it just kind of like, but I'm doing it for the love of my child and all this kind of stuff. So for me, it just brought up so many issues around you know, children and like, you know, or just relationships in general, I suppose. It's just like, I, again, think it's good, and I think probably Herman Hesse does too, if I'm reading this right, I think it's good to be called back into the world via love. Like, yeah, we fall. Like, and that's good. Like, you should fall in love. You should fall, you know, like, love should always be a fall. I mean, that's the only way it can be. It can't be something you're in control of, something that you call the shots around and all that kind of stuff. And like, so like his son not being able to dig his lifestyle or whatever, and, you know, him not being, you know, and him being okay with that, I guess, like letting him go or whatever, is kind of a, you know, you can read it positively on one side. You could also say, I mean, and I get this too, and this is part of the confusion about love and being in love, is like, you know, if you really loved the kid, you would have gone and lived in the city and raised him in the city or whatever, if you really would have, you know.
But also, I think there's this thing of, you know, especially at a certain age with kids, you have to, you know, they need you so much in the beginning, and then they don't need you as much later in life. And you have to have this kind of detached love where you're not choosing the path for them, you know, you're not saying like, you need to do this or you need to pursue this, like, you know, because they're going to grow into whoever they want to be. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I think when I was young, I don't think my mom could understand where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. And, you know, now, like, you know, I'm in a relationship and I have a stepson and everything like that. And, you know, he's getting to be like 14, and it's like almost like you have to be supportive and you have to like show love, but you know, if he wants to pursue this or that, it's like every day is completely different, and you just have to like kind of stand beside that. And I think that like detached love is kind of the way it has to be.
It's the only way to love, really. Otherwise, it's super.
And Vasudeva even kind of, you know, he wants to go across the river and go find him, and Vasudeva is just kind of like, you know, you're gonna do what you're gonna do, but you know it's kind of not, you know, and he even listens to the river's kind of laughing at him, you know? And then he has this moment where he's in pain with the loss of his son, and he looks into the river, and he sees the reflection of his dad, and he starts reflecting on how his dad...
How he treated his dad,
And it's the same cycle all over again. And I remember getting sober and finally, you know, seeing some of the things that my parents, like, you know, like did to me when I was younger and stuff like that, just like not treating me well or not like being great parents and stuff, and realizing that like they were just people, like doing the things that they had to do, and you know, they you know, had been hurt in their lives and all of these like different things, and you actually start to see yourself in them. You know what I mean? You don't see that when you're younger. Right. Because you haven't lived all of the different like the ways of life and experienced all the different people and all of the different things. And I don't know, I just like when he kind of like sees his reflection in the water and sees his like you know, his father, it was kind of like a big moment in my life, when especially when I had to make amends to my parents. You know what I mean? I hadn't talked to them in like 10, 15 years when I got sober. So like going to them and like apologizing, they were kind of like, why are you apologizing to me? You know, it's like, because, you know, I did things when I was younger, you know, punched walls and did all this like stuff, you know, and, you know, just like apologizing for that and making amends for it without saying, well, you did this to me in my life, you know, and all that stuff. And just realizing that they're people that I hurt too. You know what I mean? Was like a huge thing. Yeah, that cycle is so tremendously interesting and very present in the book as well. It's part of samsara, is like becoming your parents in a way, you know what I mean? It's like... Yeah, and this brings us really to this last final embrace of samsara, which I think we can talk more about the vision. I don't know if you had anything to read about it, or it was just something we should just talk through, but the final embrace of samsara, I'm putting it, on the river there after his son has left or whatever, and I think Govinda has died or left, or I forget. Left and then has like come back. He like left the... Oh, right, yeah. And left the Buddhists, and they have that last conversation about like Govinda's like, you know, tell me what you've learned. And that's right. Okay. I think the biggest, and this is the thing that I always like say at leads, whenever I'm asked to like lead at meetings and stuff, is that like, Govinda's really trying to help me get some of your wisdom, essentially. And Siddhartha says, yes, I have thoughts and knowledge here and there, sometimes for an hour, sometimes for a day. I have become aware of knowledge just as one feels life in one's heart. I have had many thoughts, but it would be difficult for me to tell you about them. But this is one thought that has impressed me, Govinda. Wisdom is not communicable. The wisdom which a wise man tries to communicate always sounds foolish. And it's because he didn't get wisdom just from a checklist or like, doing all the right things. He did the wrong things, and that's how he got wisdom.
Yeah.
And you can't express that to people. And
That's right.
I think that sometimes the shortcomings of recovery is that, like, the wisdom of recovery is not,
transferable.
It's not explicitly in the big book. You can read those 164 million times, and like you will get a lot of different things. And as you live, you will understand them more.
Yeah.
But the wisdom is not just in the words. You
Right.
know, it's in your life, and it's in who you love, and all of the things that surround that. So.
Yeah, I really like that because I think there's a certain intellectual knowing that's sort of one thing that I've pursued a lot in my life, perhaps sometimes as an escape from just sort of the terror of love. But, like knowing through experience is through this embrace of love, that if we are to embrace all of it, the samsara, all of the cycles, all of the suffering, as well as all of the joys and all the pleasures, we have to be able to take in all of it. Mm-hmm. And, there's this idea in both Western and Eastern philosophy that love is the only way to know. Like, I don't know you until I love you.
Yeah.
I can know like facts about you or whatever, but I don't really know anything about you. There's this different kind of knowing through loving. And so, I like to think of recovery, in its most expansive form as like this lesson in how to love, basically, how to learning or building capacities for that love. And so one of the ways in which I kind of juxtapose various relations to samsara is like the escape or the embrace. Or you could maybe combine the two and say something like escape through embrace, but it would be like still being in it or being there. So in Western philosophy, most famously, Heraclitus and his little saying about the river is, you can never, step into the same river once or whatever, because it's like the question is always like, what is the identity of a flow? It's all because it's never a thing. It's never a static thing or whatever. It's a flow. You call it a flow, but it's almost like this name for something that can't be named because it's moving too fast to name it or whatever. It's always other than itself. It's always becoming other than itself. And so, that's kind of how I like to see this end vision down by the river, is like, there's a lot of particular people that he sees in this vision. There's a lot of particular moments that he sees in this vision, but he sees them kind of all at once. Another big Hesse theme is like this simultaneity of time, like all big one thing happening together or whatever. And so, but like at the same time, it's rolling out over time. So it's like this final embrace of the absolute contradiction of time, like that, there's this eternity now, and also it's not yet. In Christian theology, it's called already but not yet theology, which is often centered around Jesus proclaiming the coming of the kingdom of God, and then people taking it one kind of way, thinking it was about to come, and then it didn't come in the form they thought. And so they thought like, okay, well, it's some sort of different thing. There's this either like he's a kook, like there's no way to take that, or it means something, but not what we originally thought, which is like the kingdom has already come, this kingdom is within kind of a thing, eternity is now kind of a thing. And also, it hasn't happened yet.
I mean, I don't know how you can look at the world with absolution. I don't even understand how you could look at the world and see like black and white. Like you
Yeah.
can just see it as like a flat plane.
Right.
It's like it's ever changing, and one thing means another. And like there's like one whole part in this book where he's like kind of talking about the duality to Govinda, and there's just so many things that I'm just like, you could like pretty much read this like a million different times.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, he kind of asks him, he's like, what if, you know, the river is just, you know, you think this river is like a god or something like that, and it's actually like, what if it's not? You know, and he kind of just says, he's like, this is not troubling me much. You know, if they are illusions, then I am also an illusion. And they are also always the same nature as myself. He's like, it is which makes them so lovable and venerable. This is why I can love them. And here is a doctrine at which you will laugh. Seems to me, Govinda, that love is the most important thing in the world.
Amen.
You know?
Yeah, preach.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, it really, you know, one of the criticisms is about like, oh, this like naive view of nature, naive view of time, where it's like this all at once kind of time or whatever. But it's like, it's not, it's a contradiction. Like, love and the built up capacity for love is this built up ability to include this contradiction and to live by it, really, to live as a flow. That's the only thing it could possibly mean. And I think, you know, Hesse was so influenced by Nietzsche. He's read lots of Nietzsche, who, you know, had this whole thing about, you know, the Dionysian and the Apollonian, that central contradiction. And then, you know, he actually met Jung, but he did therapy with a Jungian whose name I can't remember. And so, you know, in Jung, you have this idea of the embrace of the shadow. So like this, it's like this wholeness that includes incompleteness. So, you know what I mean? It's like there's this great contradiction around embracing that which you can't embrace, that which is unbraceable, you know, unembraceable or whatever. So it is this, I don't know, for me, it's not liable to some of those charges that gets thrown against him. It's not liable in the easiest possible way.
If you looked at it from a very like surface level,
yeah,
if you
right.
didn't dive deep into it and you just looked at like oh, this book is about a guy who goes out into the woods and like becomes enlightened. Yeah, I guess maybe like
that's right. Yeah.
And they may be talking about the escapism of his own life, like, you know, or something like that. But I think there's a lot more depth to some of the. I mean, if you go into some of the parts of the book, it's just like there's extreme duality and like.
Yeah, well, very clear embrace of contradiction. So then you just really can't say that there's any. Like, and this is the same thing that gets thrown against Jung all the time. It's like, oh, he's all about wholeness and completeness, but then it's like, yeah, but it's a weird kind of wholeness. It's like it includes what can't be made whole. It includes like the shadow. So like it's like it is a tendency towards bringing together, including, you know, that which can't be, you know, brought together in a one. It's almost like a two-ness that creates, you know, this third thing or whatever, this third non-thing, however you want to put it. So, yeah. But anyways, Shawn, I really appreciate it. I don't know if any last thoughts about this or...
No, man, thanks for having me. You know, I see myself in a different part of this book every single time I read it.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I'm a merchant, sometimes I'm enlightened. So, you know, ask me in another 10 years maybe to read the book again. I'll see where I'm at, so...
Oh, that would be great, man. And any other books you ever want to do, that would be awesome. So
awesome.
This was really great, and I learned a lot. So thanks again for having me read this again, sir.
Thanks, brother.
All right, yeah, brother.